I moved into that apartment thinking it was the fresh start I needed. After a draining breakup and leaving behind a suffocating job, I just wanted space, privacy, a clean slate. The building was old but charming, arched hallways, creaky wooden floors, and ivy crawling up the brick. It felt like something out of a quiet novel. And the price? Almost too good to be true. I should have known that was the first red flag. My name is Rachel, and at the time I was 27, newly single and emotionally running on fumes. I found the listing online, no broker fee, newly renovated one bedroom, safe neighborhood, and the landlord, a man named Gerald Price, seemed unusually accommodating. At first, he came off as polite, courteous even. He walked me through the unit, answered all my questions, and even knocked $100 off the rent when I hesitated. Said he liked to help young women starting fresh. I thought he was just kind, maybe a little socially awkward, but kind. The first few weeks went smoothly. I unpacked, bought a new rug, set up my work-from-home space. I journaled again. I even started baking, something I hadn't done since college. The apartment was cozy, peaceful, and mine. But something always felt off. It started with my Wi-Fi being slow. Not just slow, glitchy. Video calls would freeze for a second and then continue with a delay, like there was another connection leeching off mine. My camera light would flicker for a moment before turning on. I figured it was just bad service. Old building. Whatever. Then I started noticing that some of my things were slightly moved. My lotion bottle would be a few inches to the left. My underwear drawer felt disturbed. One day my necklace, one I never wore, was lying on my vanity table. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe I moved things and forgot. Maybe I was just paranoid after all the chaos I'd been through recently. But one night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a soft click come from the smoke detector. That's when my gut finally screamed, something's wrong. I couldn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift across my walls. My ears tuned into every creak of the old building, but my mind was replaying that click sound from the smoke detector over and over. By 3 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got out of bed, grabbed a chair, and climbed up to the detector. I unscrewed the cover, half expecting to find nothing. But instead of the usual dust and wiring, I saw something different. There was a small, black circular lens tucked behind the grill, smaller than a dime, hidden just well enough that if you weren't looking for it, you'd never see it. My heart dropped. My hands went numb. It was a camera. I froze, staring at it, breathing through the panic rising in my throat. I felt sick, violated, terrified. How long had it been there? Had it always been there? Was someone watching me right now? I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture of the inside of the detector. Then I slowly stepped down, trying not to scream. I ran to the kitchen, opened all the drawers, yanked open every vent and panel. I checked the outlets. I checked the shower head. I even tore open the back of the TV. I found 2 more hidden lenses, one in the bathroom mirror's frame, another tucked behind the curtain rod in the living room. That's when it hit me. He had been watching me, every day, every night. And the worst part? I'd signed a lease. I had no proof he installed them, just suspicion. But I wasn't going to sit in fear. I was going to build a case. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. I smiled. I brewed my coffee. I opened my laptop and even played my usual lo-fi girl background music, just like every other day. But inside, I was vibrating with rage. I knew if I confronted Gerald too soon, I'd lose the element of surprise. I needed proof. Something undeniable. Something that would destroy him legally and publicly. First, I called a friend, Daniel, a tech-savvy guy I'd met through my ex. I told him everything. He showed up that night with equipment, a frequency detector, a handheld scanner, and an old camcorder with no internet connection. Within 2 hours, Daniel found 4 more hidden cameras, one in the bookshelf, one inside the coat hook near the front door, and this one nearly made me vomit inside a tiny vent next to my bed. I don't even want to ask how long he's been watching, Daniel muttered. He helped me unscrew and catalog everything. We kept the cameras intact, didn't tamper with any wires. He explained they might be transmitting wirelessly, and if we suddenly removed them all, Gerald would know we were onto him. So I left the cameras in place, and I acted. I staged scenes, pretended to talk on the phone about non-existent issues. I even changed clothes in front of the mirror deliberately, just to keep him watching. Because while he watched me, I was watching him back. Daniel set up a hidden trail, came facing my apartment door. We connected it to a motion sensor. And 3 nights later, at 2:36 a.m., we got footage. Gerald had entered my apartment with a spare key. No knock, no call, no permission. He walked straight to the living room, pulled out his phone, then reached behind the curtain rod, adjusted the angle, smiled. That was the moment I knew I had him. The footage was gold. Gerald didn't just sneak in. He handled my belongings, adjusted the setup, checked his own hidden equipment. Like this was normal. Like I was some kind of live entertainment. I felt disgusted and strangely powerful. Now that I had evidence, it was time to escalate. Daniel and I pulled the SD card from the trail cam, backed it up in 3 different places, 2 cloud accounts, and a flash drive. I also uploaded a copy to an encrypted email address only I could access. We compiled a report. Photos of all hidden cameras, time-stamped footage of Gerald entering uninvited, photos of the tampered smoke detector, lease agreement showing no authorized access without 24 hours notice. Then came phase 2, exposure. I contacted a local journalist I followed on Twitter, Melissa Choi, known for covering tenant abuse stories. I sent her a teaser of the footage and redacted photos. Her reply was almost immediate. Can we meet tomorrow? At the same time, Daniel found something even worse. One of the hidden cameras had a faint Wi-Fi signal that was piggybacking off a hidden router, not mine. When Daniel tracked the IP address, we found it linked to an online private stream. He wasn't just watching me. He might have been streaming me. Live. That turned my stomach in a way I can't describe. My home wasn't just violated, it was monetized. My privacy sold. I immediately contacted a lawyer, Priya Sharma, someone my aunt had recommended years ago. I forwarded everything. She didn't even hesitate. This is a Class D felony, she said, and depending on whether he profited from any of it, we may be looking at federal charges. I wasn't just building a case anymore. I was lighting the match. I didn't sleep the night before. I kept imagining Gerald watching from some dim basement, surrounded by screens. I imagined him smirking as I cooked, showered, cried. I imagined him thinking I'd never find out. But he underestimated me. Melissa, the journalist, arrived at my place the next morning with her camera crew. She was calm, sharp, and furious on my behalf. She interviewed me in my living room, with the hidden cameras still in place, a sick irony that wasn't lost on either of us. I told her everything, start to finish. She asked if we could use the footage. I said burn him. Later that afternoon, with Priya's legal blessing and Daniel beside me for backup, I called Gerald. Hi, Gerald, I said cheerily. I think there's something we should talk about. Mind stopping by? He showed up 15 minutes later, smiling, greasy, smug, fake friendly. As he stepped into the living room, he paused, probably realizing something was off. Melissa's team had hidden their gear behind blackout curtains, and I kept my composure like a pro. Then I dropped the bomb. Just curious, Gerald, when exactly did you install the camera in the smoke detector? He blinked. What camera? I reached into a drawer, pulled out one of the extracted devices, and tossed it onto the table. He stared at it. That's not mine, he said too quickly. I showed him the photo of him entering my apartment at 2:36 a.m. Still denied it. Then I played the clip, right there on the TV. And that's when his face changed. Not with guilt, but with panic. He turned toward the door like he was about to bolt. Daniel stepped in front of it. I wouldn't. I handed him a letter, formal notice of lease termination, signed and backed by Priya's legal firm. And then, the final blow. By the way, Gerald, you're going to be on the news tonight. Gerald stood frozen, his hand hovering near the doorframe. I watched the realization spread across his face like a slow, ugly wave. He wasn't getting out of this. Not quietly, not cleanly. You're making a mistake, he finally said, voice low and trembling. No, I replied. You did. Repeatedly. Melissa's team stepped out from behind the curtains, camera rolling. Gerald's eyes widened. He stammered, backpedaled, tried to reach for the hidden camera I'd placed on the table. Too late. By the way, I said, you're being recorded, and this entire room is legally rented by me. So enjoy the spotlight. He stormed out, slammed the door, but the damage had been done. That night, the local news ran a full expose. Tenant finds hidden cameras in apartment. Landlord caught on tape breaking in. Melissa's report went viral within 24 hours. Thousands of shares, Reddit threads, TikTok clips. Tenant rights lawyers were tagged nonstop. Women in my city and across the country began sharing similar stories. And just like that, Gerald wasn't a faceless predator anymore. He was a public villain. Within a week, his online real estate listings vanished. His Yelp and Google reviews were flooded with warnings. A former tenant came forward to say she had also suspected being watched. And then another, and another. The police got involved. Gerald was arrested for unlawful surveillance and illegal entry. When they raided his property, they found more cameras, more recordings, and a private server hosting months' worth of footage labeled by tenant names. My footage was there, too. The DA promised to pursue maximum charges. It took a while for me to feel safe again. Even after Gerald was arrested, even after the media storm passed and the legal process began to churn, I still found myself checking over my shoulder, still glancing at vents, still hesitating before changing clothes in my own apartment. But slowly, something shifted. I moved out a month later into a newer building with fresh locks, no shared access, and a neighbor who ran a dog rescue out of her unit. It felt warmer, cleaner, mine. With Priya's help, I filed a civil lawsuit against Gerald for emotional damages, privacy violations, and breach of contract. It's still pending, but let's just say the early settlement offers have a lot of zeros. Melissa's news piece earned her an award nomination, and she asked me to return for a follow-up segment, this time as a speaker on tenant rights and digital safety. That video reached over 2 million views. A week after it aired, I got an email from a woman in Chicago. Because of your story, I found a hidden camera in my ceiling fan. Thank you for being brave. That message made me cry. Not because of fear, but because I realized my pain hadn't just taken down a predator, it had protected someone else. I started a small YouTube channel, not about revenge, but about recovery. Home safety tips, renters' rights, interviews with lawyers, therapists, women who'd faced the unthinkable and turned it into fuel. I called it Safe Space Diaries. And every time someone subscribed or commented, "Thank you," I felt another piece of myself come back. I never heard from Gerald again. Last I saw, he took a plea deal and lost his license to manage property. His face now shows up in search engines under predatory landlord. Good, because the truth is, I was never just a victim. I was the evidence. I was the witness. I was the storm. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real stories that deserve to be heard. Red Flag Diaries brings you voices that fight back because some red flags can't be ignored. Stay alert, stay strong, and remember, the truth always finds a way out. Subscribe for more gripping stories twice a day.